Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out and for having me. So I wasn't sure 100% what everybody was looking to get out of tonight's conversation. So I figured I'll just share a little bit of background about myself and what we're doing here at NYC Bagel, and then we can maybe have some questions, and I could try to answer those things. So as I was introduced, it's correct. I'm from New York originally, and before my life here as a baker, I was an educator mostly. I did teach at the university level, and then I found this kind of alternative high school programs, and so I was a New York City public school teacher, the high school level for about 10 years before coming out here. So the main question that I always get is why? Why in the world would you leave New York and come to Bosnia? It's so far away. You make so much more money there, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a fair question. My wife and I had been coming because she's from Bosnia and all of her family is here. She came as a foreign exchange student by herself and eventually worked her way to New York City. So typically what would happen, because I was a teacher, we would take some weeks in the summer and come to Bosnia, and we would usually stop somewhere, Amsterdam, Paris, you do a layover somewhere. And so we had this beautiful idea, like, why don't we live somewhere between my family and her family? Maybe Lisbon, Portugal, maybe, we're dreaming of these beautiful cities. But after talking about that for a number of years, we felt like it's just not going to happen. We have to just do something. So we left. We had been trying to get pregnant for a couple of years unsuccessfully in America, and we left and we started our adventure. And right when we got to Europe, we got pregnant. So something in the water. And so first we were like, oh my goodness, okay, that might change things a little bit. So we came to Bosnia because my wife's mother is a doctor. We had some support network there to have the baby. We had one baby. My daughter, she's 7 now. We decided to travel for a year with her. So we did 3 months in different countries, and that was always our dream. So we did that. Then we ended up in Lisbon, Portugal, which was one of our spots that we thought maybe we could live there. We got pregnant again. We're like, okay, we're getting good at this. We should slow down on this. We came back again to Bosnia to have the baby. We had a good experience the first time here. It's much more affordable. The experience can be very good here. So then we had 2 small children, and now we were thinking, okay, now what are we going to do? This is a lot to move this somewhere where we don't know the language. Someplace like Lisbon would be all of a sudden became very difficult to imagine with a whole family. It was much easier when we were single and young. So we were thinking about that, and luckily I was able to work remotely. I had this degree in poetry, but also I got very lucky to work with like international DJs to do vocals for electronic music. So I was doing that a lot at the time, which paid the bills. And so we were living here on that. And then the pandemic happened, and we really were stuck here. Just hunkered down like everybody else. And we ended up moving to Visoko and living on a farm. And, we had these little babies. We were scared they were going to get sick. And like everybody else, we kind of lost our mind. And then we started to grow roots, as they say here. So our daughter started in vrtić, and they were playing with the cousins, learning the language natively. We really saw a lot of benefit to being here. And at the same time, the idea of going back to the United States, we only really knew New York. So in New York is like a very difficult place to have 2 little children. My teaching degree salary is different with 2 little children. My wife had a great career doing pharmaceutical design, graphic design, and advertising, but that was working till midnight and lots of heavy hours, and so nothing really made sense about going back. So long story short, we decided let's stay and let's give it a go, and let's see what we can do in this more interesting path of life. So for a while, we were working remotely. She was doing some design work. I was working with education, kind of teaching educators in areas of my expertise. But then that also became a problem because having two small children, and I was getting up at 1 a.m. to do conference calls, on either New York or West Coast times, and that was getting crazy. So we decided, if we're going to live here, we really should do something more locally based. We wanted to be part of the community, not just kind of like digital nomads. And that's when we came up with an idea to do something entrepreneurial, which we had always talked about. My wife has this great design sensibility. I'm, I guess, an educator, so I like to learn things and figure things out. So we decided, let's give it a go. And we wanted to bring specifically something to Sarajevo and to Bosnia that was new and didn't exist. We feel like this place has so much to offer, but it lacks diversity in a lot of areas. And so first we were thinking something in the health and wellness sphere. We were both into yoga and meditation, and we thought about our first idea, which we didn't really tell anyone, was to bring these float tanks. These things, sensory deprivation. You like float in this completely silent saltwater bath in this like coffin, basically. It's a really cool experience. So this was our first idea, and we explored that a little bit. And it didn't seem like the most viable idea, as we would, I think when we were trying to explain it to Meli's Bosnian father, we started to realize that this is a stretch to get people into an isolation tank here. So maybe someday that'll happen. But then we had a friend who also is an entrepreneur, has a store here, and he kind of gave us the idea about bagels. And he was saying, you guys know bagels, and I think that was a good lesson for us in that, seeing the value in that. So a lot of times you don't see the value that you have. And for us, just for me growing up eating bagels every day, like I instinctively know like the feel, the taste, the texture, like everything how it's supposed to be, which is kind of an asset that I didn't recognize originally. And an advantage to somebody else who might be just interested in something like bagels and trying to formulate them. So the more we thought about this idea, the more we got excited about it, and that's kind of how we had this idea to bring bagels to Bosnia. We weren't even sure, but we couldn't find them anywhere, so we thought this is really a cool opportunity. It's something brand new, but it's also a bread product, which bread is universal. It's it's not a crazy expensive thing, so a country with not the best economy could support something like that, and we severely missed a lot of food culture, from New York especially, and neither of us know how to make Thai food, so we decided let's make what we know, which is bagels, which we both loved and missed a lot. So that's kind of the origin story of NYC Bagel. Let's see, I think so. I think that's kind of gets us to where we started, but that was just an idea. Then it was the actual like pulling it off was a hard thing. But we did recognize that it's, there was the barriers to doing it here were somewhat less than in the United States, where everything from real estate to the machinery is so expensive. We ended up applying for and receiving a USAID Diaspora Invest grant. In the end, that experience was complicated, and it wasn't necessarily the woohoo free money kind of concept that a lot of people imagine it would be. It delayed our opening by like 3 or 4 months. We had a lot of paperwork to do for it. It severely restricted us in things like you can only buy brand new equipment for a grant like this, and you have to put in half of the money. So by the time we paid half of new equipment, we probably could have bought some used equipment in certain places. And so it's just, I think what we've learned, and we've applied for several grants and worked on grants, is that they're kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of times you really have to consider if it's going to be worth it in the end to take that route. But that being said, that was helpful to us in the initial. We had some people to consult with, some people that kind of helped us out theoretically. We had some support there, and it tapped us into the American community. So we have the U.S. Embassy is located not far from us, and they're definitely a big part of our clientele. Some mornings I feel like, wow, I could be a great spy. Like every single important like ambassador person comes through the doors, and occasionally sometimes guys come and scope out the place and check it for bugs, and then like when there was an ambassador, he would come, and I wondered how much that sandwich costs U.S. taxpayers to have a staff of 8 people clear out the whole place, and but we appreciate the support. So it is kind of an ironic thing to have this very American thing like located here, but also there's so many NGOs and things operating here that I find that it kind of fits in the landscape of Sarajevo. The thing, there's many lessons that I learned culturally doing this work, but I think the one thing that I learned here is that the mentality that I had in the United States was, you have this fresh new thing, this exciting thing, or this Instagrammable thing, and that is going to immediately be like a line out the door. Like in New York, if you're making, the first time somebody made like a unicorn bagel, like multicolored bagels and things like that, people line up. If you have this special type of cupcake, people will line up for it. So we kind of had that expectation that, okay, we're going to have this fresh, brand new product, and for some people it did equate to that, and we definitely, especially because of the way that my wife designed the interior to kind of look very stylish, we get a lot of influencers and Instagram folks. But there was kind of like a skepticism, I guess, that was surprising to me. It's very easy for us to have the U.S. clientele, the tourists, and I think some young working professionals. But for a local person who's lived and born and raised here, I just noticed there is some sort of a skepticism of things that are new. People like traditional, actually, a lot here. We're situated right next door to a cafe that's like an icon, Babalu, if anyone knows this place. And it's the type of cafe where people have been going for 30 years. It's just like, you just go there, and we see the same people there every day. And I think for someone to like leave that place and come to our place would be a huge shock to me, for many reasons. And it's not completely that way. We definitely have people who come now and order, and they go sit at Babalu and have their coffee, and we bring over their bagels. And it's really cool to see people trying new things that they haven't tried. But I just noticed that it wasn't this immediate, this is brand new, everybody's going to run to get it. There was a little bit of, what is this? Well, I'm skeptical. I walk by, and even the interior, people have told us it's too nice or it's too fancy. It looks like maybe people would be skeptical, like say that's not for me, type of thing. So there was these kind of cultural moments that we learned, and then there was times where we really tried to merge the two cultures. We didn't want to. We definitely wanted to do something different. We didn't want to, put cevapi on a bagel, or have like, heavy foods, because we felt like so many people are doing this well already here. You can get great meats and heavy things. So our menu is much more veggie-based, vegetarian. We have, a couple vegan options and things like that. We kind of went for what we wanted as a break from heavier foods for lunch. And we work with some local organic farms to get the produce. We recycle. We're trying to do kind of everything that we wish more people were doing locally. So that's part of it as well. We did put on the menu suho meso cream cheese. This is something that really works like perfectly to me, because in the United States you have bacon in a lot of things, and here we didn't want to use bacon. So the sujo meso is kind of very similar in that it's just salty dried meat. You chop it up, you mix it into cream cheese, and it's really delicious. So when I get a skeptical older gentleman from Bosnia that wants to try something, I'll recommend this, and it's usually a big hit. Then, so business was good in the beginning. Everybody was kind of interested in it. Then we got a little cocky. We're like, this is so easy. We don't even have to advertise. Everybody's coming. And then the weather got colder and it just dropped off the face. We were like, it was just brutal first winter. It was like, the air's bad. Nobody's going outside. It's Ramadan. Nobody's eating during your business hours. It's raining outside. Nobody's going outside. It was just like, it's cold. There was like a million, everybody kept telling us all these excuses why nobody was coming. And so then we were like, wow, we really have to try to adapt and change. We started doing a lot of social media videos. We found that I trended very well trying to speak Bosnian. So I did a bunch of videos where I'm speaking in Bosnian and trying to explain bagels and things like that. Probably it's funny to people the way that I speak. I don't know. And then, as I was explaining to a couple of people before we started, last summer we had this phenomenon where we became like TikTok famous with Arabic people. It was really strange, strange and awesome. One day somebody came and was like, this guy made a video about your place. He's really big. And we were like, okay, that's cool. And then the next day it was like a van pulled up with like 20 Arabic people. And then the next day more vans came and it became like Arabic summer. It was just like, and as like serving like a Jewish food, it was really fantastic to see just like every table packed with people from Saudi Arabia eating bagels and drinking specialty coffee. It was really wild. So all of a sudden that tripled our business in the summer, which was great. And then the same thing happened. It dropped off in the winter again. And so we're like, okay, we're still trying to figure out how to not just be this summer business that's booming in the summer and then dies in the winter, because that evens out to a pretty decent number, but not what it needs to be for us to survive really long term. So we weren't sure if it was going to happen again this summer, and especially because of what was happening with war. Basically, there was a lot of talk that Arabic people were not going to be coming as much, and they definitely came, at least to our shop, a lot. So that was again a great summer, and now we're back into the fall winter where we're trying to kind of be creative and come up with, we're working on like a bagel box right now for catering that might attract like corporate people who are looking to have food for their meetings and things like that. So that's a little behind the scenes on kind of like what we've been dealing with, what we're thinking about, where our mind is. We've always thought of being bigger and expanding. We'd really love to franchise. This is something that we have kind of like a package for, waiting for that right opportunity where somebody would like to open their own NYC Bagel and transfer all of that knowledge and that skill. And we even thought, kind of working on this full circle idea of franchising in the United States, kind of going back there, because what we're doing, is quite different even in the United States for a bagel shop. Bagels in the United States, typically, like the aesthetic and design of a bagel shop is non-existent. It's not even a thought. It's just like, it's a hole-in-the-wall place where you get this delicious bagel and you go on your way. And so the fact that we've kind of created like an aesthetic to our shop, to our products and to our branding is different even in the United States. So we're kind of hoping that somebody sees value in that as well. I think that's kind of what I wanted to share thus far. I did share that my parents moved here from the United States, also with no connection to Bosnia except for us, and our two small children were the main draw for that, but that's been very cool to have. It made living here a lot easier, not to be so far away from my parents and have them here, also to have the support of them. And it has been kind of that dream in a lot of ways that our children's, Bosnian as their mother tongue, even though I'm speaking English at home. They've helped me a lot with my language, and they have that connection to this country and to their family and here, so that's been really great. I'm not sure if I covered what you came for, so ask me questions if you'd like.
What's your experience with the paperwork, with the red tape running the business?
Yeah, a good question. A lot of, I have to say, first, I didn't run a business in the United States, so I can't directly compare. I'm comparing to what I know and from talking to my friends who do run businesses, what it's like. There's a lot of anti-corruption type of measures here that make it extremely difficult for running businesses. Like, for instance, all of your ingredients, everything has to be documented extremely well. It's not like in the United States where like your friend comes in and you can just say like, here's a soda or something like that. Like here they'll say, where is the soda? You're supposed to have 23 sodas, you have 22. Like that's a problem. Everything must be accounted for. We're paying tax on bagels that I'm throwing out at the end of the day. Actually, we don't throw them out, we donate them. But everything has to be accounted for in a way that is kind of arcane and a little bit stifling, to be honest. And then also it's frustrating because you know there's corruption at a large scale and you're just this tiny person trying to run a business, and you have to know how much cream cheese you're putting on a bagel, which is insane because, you know, then you have an employee and are they putting 50 grams exactly or 55? If they're putting 55, then at the end of the month, that's a lot of extra cream cheese and now your numbers are all off. So there's a lot of stress. And again, that mostly falls on my wife, who's kind of the financial advisor of the place. I'm just the head pekar, you know. So I wish my job was just making bagels, but it's so much more than that. And we have a lot of stress around that paperwork. Also getting, you know, where you buy all of your things, you need to get all sorts of paperwork for any animal products, and that has to be all up to date. There's mountains of paperwork, and definitely something that would make you not want to do it if you could see that before you started. That being said, I'm sure there's paperwork in any business, and you know we have an accountant who helps as much as possible, and yeah, that's not the fun part of the job whatsoever.
Better situation now. In that context.
The paperwork?
Yeah.
I mean, we're on our second lap around the sun. This is our second year, so we learned a lot, and we're better at everything than we were before. So I would say yes, it's better, but still very difficult. The end of every month, like which is now, is like a lot of stress of getting all the paperwork from that month together and pile up, and a lot of days we're in the back with papers all over the place. And the annoying thing is people keep coming in for bagels. I have to keep going in to make sandwiches. It'd be a very easy job if it was just doing the paperwork or just making bagels and serving people, but it's both. And so it's really funny because I'll often see this dichotomy, like as the business owner, you want it to be as busy as possible. But as a worker, it's like when it's overwhelmingly busy, like in the summer months with Arabic customers and tourists and everything, it's so overwhelming. It's like you're ready to just fall on your face. By the end of like film festival, you're just like tapped out, like completely exhausted. And that's the best time because you're earning there at that time. But it's also the hardest time because I'm working like crazy hours to make that happen.
And I have to ask you about the customers you mentioned. Were there a point when you like were like in a sense like I'm done with people, I'm not gonna do this anymore. Like we are closing the bagel shop. Let's move on to something other because working with people is really challenging.
Yeah, no, we again, we have like I really feel like we have the best customers, like really amazing customers. But in the like the first 2 weeks we were open, I was really shocked and kind of disheartened. There was a lot of like negativity. I don't know what it was, but there was some sort of a target on our back. I think because um, something about the American aspect of it. Some people were not happy with that, and I'm speaking mostly to like an article would come out and then you'd see these comments, and the comments, which are just comments, but would be like, this is some, American garbage here to poison our people, and, like a lot of negativity towards Americans and American food culture, government power, which, directed at us. Then there was like this huge, almost hilarious authenticity kind of battle because bagels have been very political for some people, and um, yeah, and so we as a baker, often, and I'm very, the best day is when you have somebody from the United States come and tell you like, I'm from New York or I'm from Connecticut or wherever, and this is like one of the best bagels I've ever had. That's like, this touches my heart because it's like, okay, you grew up eating, like what a bagel is. What we would get is like a person who went to New York once being like, this isn't a real bagel, this is blah, 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 and like, and in the first 2 weeks I would be like, what are you talking about? I'm writing back to them and like this 6 paragraph thing, which gets you nowhere. I learned you can't respond like that. But it's very personal. When it's something, it's your baby. The shop is our baby, and you're creating something and working with your hands and making it, and then somebody is saying it's chewy or something, and you're like, a bagel is supposed to be chewy, and like. It's too big or it's too small, it's too chewy, it's not chewy enough. Like, I think this is like any creative person. You create something and there's going to be critics, out there. So, in general, the response has been amazing and customers have been great. But in the beginning, I noticed that there was a lot of like politicized kind of negativity. There was a lot of anti-diaspora vibe happening that I noticed in the beginning. I just assumed, and this is my ignorance, but I just assumed that diaspora returning would be this wonderful thing. Here it is, people are investing back in the community, they've lived somewhere else, but they're choosing to come here. Like, someone like my wife who didn't leave during the war, but left after the war. But I think what I've noticed is that there's some sentiment, and I see this even within like people that we know here. There's some sentiment of, I don't know, maybe you think you're better than us because you've lived in this other country. Maybe maybe there's a sense of a jealousy of you had that experience. Maybe there's a sense of negativity if somebody left during the war, that they weren't here, during that time period. For whatever reason, us being part of this kind of like vibe of diaspora returning and investing in the country wasn't all like, yay, this is the great thing. And that kind of surprised me.
Speaking about diaspora, I usually hear comments like from people like, yeah, you failed there, so you had to come back. You didn't come back because you find something beautiful here, because you see a value or whatever. But no, you must have been failing there, so you had to come back.
Yeah, I guess that could be another one. Yeah. And yet we feel like it needs to happen. We're invested, especially with our children. Like, we so desperately want Sarajevo and Bosnia to be a place that they're not just dreaming of leaving. Like, I see people being like, you get good skills and then you can go to Germany and make lots of money or something, and we so much dream of it being a place where there's opportunity and that there's value, and it has, I mean, anybody can see the potential, and it has, great people, great food, great nature. There's so many good things here. Obviously, it has a political situation and economic situation that's difficult, but we want it to be. We'd love more people to come and set up shop here. So we're definitely on that side of things. but not everybody, I think, feels the same way.
What would you do differently? Location, size, menu?
Oh, good question. Definitely the location is not ideal. There's good to our location. We talked about it before we started that, if you kind of, on paper, it seems really great. It's near schools, it's near shopping centers. But what we've realized is that because there's not foot traffic there, and people are here are of a routine where if it's something is even a little bit out of the way, it's like, I'm not going to do that. And there's so many options, all along your way. Like you can, there's many pecaras and other things that you can go to. So we dreamed of having something, in Old Town or on a main street. We think that it would do very well in that situation. So I think we might have waited or looked harder to try to find that type of space. Although that being said, our current space was a pekara for 35 years, so it has certain bones that work really well, that we were able to set up well. Finding a space is a second space. We really wanted to find a second space, and we still do, but it's really difficult. We encountered, I don't want to say corruption, but what's the word? That's the right word. Hand to hand. The places go hand to hand. We found a lot of government spaces that are supposed to be very affordable. They're being like subletted, basically. Somebody has them, they pay 800, they want 5,000. Pay us 40,000 up front, and we'll let you have it for 800. There's so much of this happening. It's so stifling to small businesses. It's really unfair, especially because the government has these very affordable spaces, but they're not being given. They're being run by a small group of people who own many of them. So that, without getting too negative, that's frustrating. And then when there's a government call, we've had a couple of experiences with government calls where we've applied. My wife has applied for, I'm a young woman in a small business, and the grant sounds perfectly tailored to her, and we just never seem to get those grants. And we see other people getting them, and we're thinking, how is that possible? We spent 100 hours on the application process and went over with a fine-tooth comb. But so you'll never really know, why you didn't get that grant. Maybe there's some corruption, maybe not. But that's been a very frustrating experience.
Was there some sort of cultural shock, compare, if you were to start a business like this in New York, and then would the government support you to be able to take any grants from the government?
I'm not sure. I think we always joke that people say, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And we're like, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
How does that tell you are running as your own business in that tiny part of center municipality? I think.
Yeah, center.
Somewhere behind the buildings, not on the main road. And then imagine you find a new store, a new shop, on the main street. I think it would be just an extra layer to your previous business because you are already a name. You build some, how to say it. Your people are kind of familiar. You have customers. You have people who come because of the things you do. You make prepare.
Yeah, we think it would be great. I know it would be a lot of work and some investment, but we look forward to expanding at some point. We're actively looking every single day. We look on OLX and ProStore and things like this, but everything has to line up and be right. And there was one space that we didn't take early on because it felt too early for us, and it was too scary to take on such a thing. And now we look back and we're like, wow, we should have taken that space, and we didn't realize what it was, how good it was, basically. But But this is life, where you're trying to make the best decision that you can.
When you compare that story you mentioned here in Bosnia, when you compare it with New York, what we can learn from that kind of comparison?
I mean, I think like navigating systems is much easier there. Like finding a space would be no problem. I mean, things are expensive, but it's a logical way to find, there's a logical way to find retail spaces. You don't have, things make sense in America in certain ways, real estate wise. So here I walk down and there's a storefront that's been abandoned in the main part of town for years. That's like that would never happen in the United States. Like somebody would be monetizing that somehow. There's apartments that are just sitting empty here. There's shop fronts that are empty in prime real estate. It boggles the mind, even I'll see a thing on OLX, the price is too high, and they'll just keep it that way for 10 years. They just never lower the price. Just, it blows my mind. I don't know. Things just work differently here. So I think in that way, there's more logic. And here, some elements seem to have less logic to them.
Related to grants and
Grants.
that kind of grants and that kind of stuff.
I think that they would be very similar. I think that you would probably have less like I would think there'd be less political influence than you have here, but I'm not sure because I never tried to do it in the United States. So I don't want to say that it would be easier, but it seems like it would be easier.
So it looks to me as a foreigner who's new to this country, it looks food is great here, and especially because the industry that we are in, the bakeries and the breweries. So given these, how did you decide what was the, I think it's brave to decide to get in this industry at first, and also like, if it was in like maybe London, then there is no like fast quick food in terms of like a bakery. I'm not saying Paris because it's also like also some bakery is very popular there. Would you still choose this location for bagels, or would you still do bagels in Sarajevo?
You're saying what I...
If you start from scratch.
Yeah, no, I still think it's a great idea. I still think it really works. I love bagels. Like I grew up, to me, bagels, like having bagels is like having any other type of food, like, or it would be like having cevapi here. Like it's crazy not to have bagels in the city. Since we've started now, I've noticed there's one or two other places that put a bagel on their menu. I want to be that guy, but they're not real bagels. But it's inspiring to see. We always said it wouldn't be the worst thing if there was more bagel shops. Just like pizza shops, you don't need to have only one pizza shop. Like there's enough people that there can be many pizza shops and there could be many bagel shops. It was nice to be the first to have that credibility, but I think that I would still choose it here. I still think that Sarajevo deserves great bagels.
Any bagels taste today?
What's that?
We have brownies.
Yeah, so I brought
Bagels
brownies
already
today.
cooked.
My theory on bringing bagels is you kind of want them to be fresh, and you kind of want, I didn't want to prepare a bunch of sandwiches and have them sitting for a couple of hours. So hopefully we'll see some of you guys in the shop sometime. I bought a bunch of brownies, which I guess we'll have at the end.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Originally, I was making a black and white cookie, which is a very traditional New York thing, old school cookie, but it's very hard to prepare, and it basically just didn't make sense to make them all the time. So we tried to come up with another dessert that, not that brownies don't exist here, but it's not a very popular thing. And it's something also that I grew up eating and is very much like childhood to me. So we decided to start because I learned Bosnian people like to have a sweet. We didn't envision having sweets per se, but putting Nutella on a bagel is something you don't do in America, but here we do it all the time. People really like sweets. So that's a different, another like, cultural element that I learned here. So we made brownies. The other thing I want to mention, which I forgot to, is I can't give enough credit to my wife, who should be here, but she hates speaking in front of people, so she always makes me do it, and it's something that I can actually do because I like speaking to people. But the doing a business like this particularly, I think it's very difficult, both for her because she has a lot of responsibility. Like, I mean, the phone rings, I pick up, I try, it's too complicated, I hand it to her. And she's amazing in that way, but also it's very difficult. It's frustrating for her because the burden is on her so much to handle, like everything from the construction element. We had, 20 construction workers, building the space that she's running, to dealing with the accountants and things. Everything is too complicated for me, for my language skills. I can read Peppa Pig books to my children and, give basic directions and things like that. But also, it's hard for her especially, but also for me, it's very, it's like infantizing. I don't know what the word is exactly, but it's really hard to not be able to do things you want to do when you don't have the language ability, the language skills. That's been the hardest part as a foreigner running a business it's amazing that people do it without having a wife or a husband who's a fluent speaker. It's really difficult. But for me, it's very frustrating because I'm used to being able to do everything for myself. And then here I'm relying on her so much. So that's been a big strain and something that I wasn't, when we were working remotely, I had my own career. So I didn't have, and I was working with people in the United States. So I didn't have that issue. Now in this business, even with a customer sometimes coming in, I can't understand necessarily if it's something complicated what they're saying, and I have to get help. It's like you feel like a child, and that's not a really tough feeling when you're like a grown man who's used to doing things for themselves. So that's one thing that's been a challenge for sure. And I'm grateful that she's able to step up in that way, but it's a lot because we also have children and elderly parents and things like that that have to get dealt with.
Shall we eat those brownies?
Sure, let's see some brownies.